Okay, today is November 8th, 2021, and to my agitation, I just discovered that today is St. Michael's Day in the east of Europe. So the Orthodox Church celebrates today St. Michael and Gabriel. And also the Catholic Church in the eastern part of Europe. So by the way of this, very quickly, I assembled a short presentation to pay homage to this connection between St. Michael and architecture. I'm far from being an expert in religious matters, but I do have reverence for the great buildings that honor important guiding marks in the spiritual journey of the world in general, not just in Christianity. But who was Saint Michael? He was an archangel, and let's read just this short text about him. In the New Testament book of Revelation, Michael leads his angels against the dragon, the devil, and Satan, and his angels during the war in heaven, where he defeats the dragon. In the epistle of Jude, Michael is specifically referred to as the Archangel Michael. Sanctuaries to Michael were built by Christians in the 4th century when he was first seen as a healing angel. Over time, his role became one of a protector and the leader of the heavenly host against the forces of evil. Yes, he is considered the leader of the army of angels, thus, the army of God. And this archangel apparently was also esteemed by the Jews, and it's not very clear to me because you can find this information about the presence of Michael, not just in the Judaic religion, but also in the Quran, and for the Muslims. He was a very important, and he is a very important, personality, if I am to call him so, within the pantheon of significant names in religion. So quickly, because as I said, to my shame, I only learned like 2 hours ago that today is St. Michael's Day, and this is my job to pay homage to important birthdays or important celebrations. I assembled an incipient presentation about St. Michael in architecture. And I will begin. I'll show just this statue in Hamburg, which shows Archangel Michael defeating the dragon or Satan. And personally, I have a liking for an angel who is also militant, who doesn't act in a so-called angelic way. An angel who assumes the difficulties of life and who fights for what he or she, what should I say? What is the sex of an angel? I think an angel doesn't have a sex. So how could I call him? Him or her or it? Anyway, Archangel Michael defeats the dragon, defeats Satan. And look at the face of Satan or the dragon. And look at the face of Michael, the archangel. I wish more people would fight with the same determination like the Archangel Michael for what they believe in. So it's a nice artwork, I would say. This statue in Hamburg. I don't know who sculpted it, but it seems to have the necessary drama. As for the wings, yes, he was an archangel, and yes, I believe we should have wings too, sometimes under certain conditions, perhaps not always. Remembering Charles Baudelaire, who said that the albatross, the poet is like the albatross, can fly but cannot walk. And I believe the description of Charles Baudelaire is correct. Many times the poet can fly but cannot walk. And I will include here also the the blessed architect. I'm talking about the architect who has enough to say, but unfortunately society, or who knows what committees, or who knows what business people try to cut his wings or her wings. Anyway, I begin with this church of St. Michael from 1952-1956 in Frankfurt am Main in Germany, by these architects, Rudolf and Maria Schwarz with Karl Wimmenauer. I just said that in a previous discussion that Germany has a very important mid-century architecture. I am talking now about ecclesiastical architecture. Churches they built immediately after the war, and this is one of them. I like it because it doesn't look like a church. But it looks other. And what else should the house of God be if not the other par excellence? The otherness of God is illustrated through this building. You don't quite know what it is. Is it industrial? No, not really. It's certainly not. Its function is not explicit. But I think it's an inspired work, and there are others, I'm sure. But with the speed I had to assemble this short presentation, I simply couldn't find them quickly. But look at this church. It's a good work from mid-century, and it shows clearly to me the remorse of the German people after the Second World War. There is a gravity about these buildings, even if they seem to be unconventional because of their modernity. But we cannot deny, the seriousness of the building, and the language, the architectural language is rather austere. The plan is a little bit strange, perhaps, but it works well in terms of how the building presents itself towards the outside. The interior is luminous, and the colors contributed to this. All in all, I think it's an interesting building, and it is dedicated, as I said, to St. Michael. Now we arrive at a truly important work by Sir Basil Spence. And I have a presentation on Sir Basil Spence, a very important British architect who did a marvelous job here at adding some new parts and new interventions to Coventry Cathedral, which is a church of St. Michael's. So I think he did a marvelous job to unite the old with the new. Truly, this building deserves attention and study, because it's not easy to connect with an existing or an old cathedral and accomplish what he did. You see the old building, which I don't know was deteriorated by or destroyed by war. I don't know its history, but this part, the new part, belongs to Sir Basil Spence. And he collaborated with important artists. And it's an example of what artists together with architects can accomplish when the conductor, so to speak, of the orchestra visual artist is a good one, like Sir Basil Spence. So you have the old, and you have here the old too, but you also have the new, and the new, I think, is dynamic, is underlining an architecture which is not an object. When Wang Shu said that architecture is not an object, he was right. And here you see that this building connects. So connecting transcends the limits of what we call an object. So there is continuity and there is also break or fracture, because you have the new and you have the old, but the two work together in a celebration of a time which refuses to stop, which refuses to end. And this is not easily done. Look at the interior. It's modern. It's modern. The stained glass window is modern. The ceiling is modern. The structure is modern. But still there is a reference, a dialogue with the past, a reference to what preceded it. Now, of course, he benefited from important artists he worked with, like Graham Sutherland. You know, I mean, you know, that's how it should be. If the house of God does not receive, you know, the talent of the best artists and architects, then what? So this was always done in certain parts of the world. I'm talking anyway. I should not get now to become too polemical. Please be kind and turn off the microphone, because I hear a certain noise in the back. Thank you. Unless you want to say something. But Sir Basil Spence, and I have a presentation on him where I have many more images about this work. But I'm glad that I still have the chance on St. Michael's Day here in the East to show a work from the West that pays homage to St. Michael in a creative way. Look at these slender columns, you know, and look at the, I mean, this is the beauty of architecture. You know, it's paying homage to spirit in a creative way, and it cannot be in any other way. Here as well, you see, it's the drama of the struggle actually between dark and light. Between this is an eternal struggle. Spirit is not easy to arrive at. And in the image that you see here, you can see that the struggle, you know, I mean, here is Saint Michael, but here you have references to some, you know, the drama of in Christianity, and you know, there is conflict and there is you know, pain. The architecture of cathedrals, of churches, didn't neglect often, very often, especially in the past, what we call, you know, the Last Judgment, or even the, you know, apocalyptical images. There was always a struggle between the good and the evil. Saint Michael's, or Archangel Michael, also fought against the evil for the good. But you have the dialectics between shadow and light, between the good and the bad, and they coexist. You cannot just have an Apollonian, angelic reality as if the dark forces of, let's call it, the evil do not exist. They do exist. So somehow what I see here in the work of Sir Basil Spence is an architecture as a process, is an architecture in the process of becoming, but it also crystallizes itself in a coherent whole. And this coherent whole is not in antithesis or opposition to the old building. And now we arrive, and sorry, I should have had more images, but you can search yourself. And I promise the next time I will have a larger presentation about St. Michael and architecture. Now we have another church of St. Michael built by a wonderful architect, Jose Plechnik. And this building is surprising because, why? Because it is creative. So the Church of St. Michael in, I don't know how to pronounce it, I guess it is part of Ljubljana or near Ljubljana. Anyway, was designed and built between 1937 and 1940 by this excellent architect, Jose Plechnik. And look at the building. It's rustic. Is in a way it's a building that could provoke some consternation, because I mean, look at these windows here. These are, you know, you would say domestic windows, but there is this aspect of this building that you know, plus you enter directly through the campanile, which is unusual, and you enter at a higher level, not at you know, the ground level. And so there are innovations here, kind of interesting things, plus the materials used. You know, here is rough stone, and the windows, these are domestic windows, you know, residential windows. What do they have to do in this building? It's an interesting building. And you know, this you know, ceremonial stair also you know, evokes that this is not an ordinary function for this building. Very interesting architect, Joseph Plečnik, really. And this is one of the churches that he built. We saw one in Vienna, the first church in concrete, in exposed concrete, modern church, also built by him. He also has references to the past, to, you know, to the history of architecture. There are historicist elements in his buildings, but I don't think they overwhelm his own creativity, which is, you know, obvious in almost everything he did and does. And look here, you know, it's unusual in a way. It seems to have a certain ambivalence towards choosing the right architectural language, but exactly this hybridity, I think, offers the building charm. Now you would say, wait a minute, why does a church need charm? You know, by charm, I want to mean that there is attractiveness in the building. Look at the interior. You know, look at these columns. There is some folkishness, there is some folk quality in the interior, and also kind of connects, although he uses wood and outside is stone, but it's a dialogue with the rusticity. And this I find appealing and provocative even. A very interesting architect, really. So it's St. Michael's Church, either in Ljubljana or near Ljubljana. I mean, if I look at this picture, I see on one hand structure explicitly, but there is also surprise, because on one hand there is also ornamentation. You can see it on the columns, very different columns. This one is very different from this one. And indeed, why should they be equal? Because the function of this one is different from the function of this one because of its placement. But then, you know, the carpentry of the roof is done differently in a very simple way. So, you know, look here at the bottom of this beam. You know, there is an ornamentation, a line, but it's ornamental. Look at here, at this wooden column. Also, there is ornamentation. There is another ornamentation here, which probably is connected with the folk culture of his country. When I say his country, I'm not. This architect also built in Vienna significantly. I like this building, the Church of St. Michael by Joseph Plečnik. I'm not sure I pronounce his name correctly. I used to know to pronounce it correctly, and in the meantime, I forgot, lost in the ocean of names. Anyway, it's an interesting church which deserves study. And if you want, if you are inclined in a cerebral way towards analysis. So this Slovenian architect built I think 3 or 4 churches, no, maybe more, in Belgrade also he built, and in Prague, and in Ljubljana, and in Vienna. And why not let IV attack the company, attack the tower? Maybe the word attack is not the best word, but I think, you know, if you allow nature to interact with the building, there is nothing sinful here. Those who might think that you know, a church as this house of God should have nothing to do with interaction in this almost pagan way with nature, I think they are wrong. Frank Lloyd Wright, he was asked, do you believe in God? And he said, I do, but I spell it nature. So there, an architect like Frank Lloyd Wright thought that actually between God and nature there is an, you know, they are, you know, the same thing almost.